Hey everybody, thanks for joining me here today. This is Nicole with Topaz. Today is Quick Tip Thursday and we're going to be going over DJPEG versus DeNoise. Both programs are very amazing for certain types of image problems and distortion. So we're going to be going over when to use each and how they can complement each other and how certain images are not going to be able to be handled by the other one, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and get started. If you're having any trouble with your sound or your screen, go ahead and just log off and log back in, or minimize your screen or maximize your screen. One or two of those usually helps. So I hope that resolves it for you. If you have any questions, you can type them into your questions module. I will be answering those at the end of the presentation. I'll stay online with you and answer as many as I can, but I won't be able to answer during the presentation. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with this image here. This is an image that has major JPEG compression artifacts. So what exactly is a JPEG compression artifact? Let me just zoom on in so you can see how ugly they really are. Okay, so JPEG compression artifacts usually show up in the form of blocks like this, which are known as checkerboards because they end up forming this checkerboard pattern. They also have lots of mosquito noise, which comes along with the edges. So you'll notice in this image we have a lot of mosquito noise here on this flower. Here, this is actually just one color. It's not two colors. So you'll have a lot of mosquito noise all over this particular flower area, along with her chin and just different edges around the entire image. So we are looking at this at 300% right now. At 100%, it doesn't look all that bad, but you really want the best quality you possibly can get, and it's very noticeable after using DJPEG on this image. So let me show you the after here. Here's after. Let's just scroll in a little bit. As you can see, the checkerboard has disappeared. The mosquito noise has disappeared, and this is a very, very compressed image. So let me show you again before. Here's before. Checkerboard, not looking too pretty. And here's after. So major difference. Now, even more cool about this, I think, is here's before. Notice her eyes, okay? They look pretty in focus, I suppose, for you know, such a compressed image. But watch after we use DJPEG. I'm about to do after. Here's after. Okay, her eyes and eyelashes got much more sharp. It became immediately a stronger image, a stronger quality image, and this is where DJPEG comes into play. Okay, so why do people use JPEGs if they have these compression artifacts that start to appear? Mostly because the JPEG image format reduces your file size by a major amount, and it allows for not only increased storage, but that's really what most web images are too. If you pull an image off the web, majority of the time it's going to be a JPEG. So it has these benefits to it, like those. However, it does have some unwanted kind of consequences of the JPEG format, and that is these compression artifacts. So that is why we have DJPEG in our bundle for you. It's also really, really helpful for old JPEG images. I don't know if you guys had some of the first digital cameras or first phones that were actually taking images, and if you saved those images, you'll probably notice the quality of them isn't as great as today's phones, today's cameras. So that's really where DJPEG would come into play as well. So let's hop on into the program real quick and I'll show you how it works. I'm just going to take this background image, make another copy, and go straight into DJPEG. I'll show you how easy this one was. So this is a major, let's reset all here. Over here on the right lower corner, you'll always have this reset all. Most of our programs will apply the last applied settings. So the last applied settings, I believe, were for this image, if I think I'm correct. So that's why it looks pretty good right now. But let's go ahead and reset all. Okay, and let's kind of zoom in on an area that might have all of the issues going on that we need to look at. Okay, this is great. Okay, now we have all of this mosquito noise over here in these in these flowers. We have this major checkerboard going across. We have a pretty unsharp eye. So let's see what we need to do to fix this. It's very similar to the rest of our programs. We have our preset panel over here on the left, and we only have 5 presets, but you can definitely save and import and export and delete your own like always. But you really don't need all that many presets because it does a really good job of detecting where these compression artifacts are. The technology behind it is pretty amazing. So I know that this is a highly compressed JPEG. So that is the that's going to be the preset I choose. So let's choose it. So let me show you before. Here's before and after. So immediately you see most of the artifacts, most of the distracting elements within the JPEG disappears. Again, here's before and here's after. Now I do notice that I have a little bit of mosquito noise left over here. I'm not super happy with her eye yet. It's not very sharp. Here's before and after. So I'm just going to take my artifacts and hike that up to about 0.9. That starts to take most of that mosquito noise away. I'm also going to be dealing with that in just a moment down here on the lower portion. The smooth color I'm going to leave really high because I think it blends really nicely and I think the color is doing pretty well right now. You do have to watch out for that when you work with this program, so the smooth color comes in very handy. I'm going to actually sharpen just a little bit more. And now her eye is becoming something that I'm pretty excited about. Okay, now I'm going to come down here to the Advanced tab. The Advanced tab is going to have the noise reduction area that people are always saying, well, it has a noise reduction area. Why do I need DeNoise? So we'll go into that in just a sec. But to work with the Luma and the color noise, we do have this luminance and color preview displays. So if you go to luminance, you're going to see just the Luma noise. And as you can tell right here, it's still a bit noisy in these shady areas. So I'm just going to take that up just a little until it starts to smooth out for me. And now I'm going to go into my color noise, and it looks pretty good, but I am going to just take that up a bit as well. See if I can get something that's a little bit better. Okay, now this area looks much better. That mosquito noise has calmed down quite a bit. Again, we are looking at this at 300%, so just keep that in mind. Here's before, and here's after. Okay, this color edge radius is just going to help firm up those color edges as they transition from color to color. So I think this is a pretty good setting right here. The edge threshold is going to tell me where that color edge should start, whether I want to be focusing on all edges in the image like it is when it's at 0, or if I want to only focus on the larger edges, I would put it up to about 0.8, up on the top area of this slider. But I want to do all edges, so I'm going to, well, maybe not. Maybe right about here. Okay, so here's before, here's after, before, after. Now if I want to have my saturation a little bit more, it automatically for this preset went to 1.1, but I want to take it down. I don't need it to be too saturated. And it also added grain for me to give me a more natural effect. If I took that out, it becomes a little bit plasticky because it is a smoothing type of technology. So I want to go ahead and probably keep it about the same. So let's just say OK. All right, so let's take a look a little bit closer. Here's before, all of the grid, all of the noise over here, and here's after. Pretty incredible. It's a very quick process. This really could have just been one preset, but I wanted to play around and show you guys a little bit more. Let me make one more background copy and I'll show you DeNoise real quick. So I'm going to take that background copy, which is the messed up copy, and we're going to go to DeNoise 5. One of my favorite plugins in the Topaz suite because it's just amazing, but it cannot handle really high compression artifacts, JPEG compression artifacts. And I'll show you here. Let's reset all. So as you can see, we are actually, let's go up here, we do have this grid pattern going around. Her eye has a lot of mosquito noise along with that grid pattern, so this is a good spot to just stop. Now I'm going to just come over here to my presets and just start clicking. My JPEG light, no, I still see everything here. My JPEG moderate, starting to get better, but it's also starting to smooth out and kind of blur out a little too much, especially down in her eye, and it still has that grid pattern here. Still has a really strong grid pattern up here. I'm not sure if you're able to see that, but these are definitely just big blocks. So let me see what the strong does. If it takes care of, no, it's getting even blurrier. Still have a serious problem with the blocking up here, and the eye is still blocking up right in the middle. The mosquito noise is not being taken care of, and it's starting to blur quite a bit. So really, I think this is just an immediate, just to show you immediately that it cannot handle this very well, like DeJPEG does. So you can come over here and really work with adjusting the shadows versus the highlights, and kind of play around. And actually, this program is so powerful. If you do not know how to actually work with all of the different sliders and how to kind of tell what's going on, I definitely suggest you take a look at the introduction to DeNoise, because it's just a really powerful program. So it's a little bit better, but here's before and here's after. So it definitely helped quite a bit. Let's just go ahead and say okay. Let me reduce the blur actually and try to recover a little bit more detail in that hair. Really not working. Okay, so I'm going to say okay. Now, let's take a look at this area up here where we were looking before. Okay, here it is originally. Look at this crazy amount of artifacts. Okay, and here is DeNoise, which helped quite a bit. Again, let me show you before. Now DeNoise, but you still see lines on her forehead. You still see major blocking up here. Her eyes are just awful, and the hair has really smoothed out way too much. And now here is DeJPEG. So let me show you the difference again. Here's DeNoise. And here's DeJPEG. Look at all of the blockiness. It's gone. Her eye is great. There's no lines on her forehead. Her hair is still nice and crisp in the areas it was before. So it really shines when it comes to these really heavy JPEG artifacts. All right, now let's quickly take a look at DeNoise and what it's used for. DeNoise is not your normal noise reduction program. Where DeNoise shines is when it comes to really high ISO noise, really heavy noise. Let's take a look at this image here. This was taken, this is not a JPEG. This is a raw image. I used Adobe Camera Raw. Did not use any noise reduction because I knew how much noise was actually in this program, or in this picture. So look at all this noise. Crazy amounts of noise. Crazy amounts of color noise, crazy amounts of contrast noise. It was just not looking all that great. Now, after running through DeNoise, I was able to use DeNoise to take the noise out but still keep all of the texture and the marble, which is just amazing. I still kept my really sharp edges, still kept a lot of detail, and it even improved on my color. So here's before. Everything kind of had this color cast because of all the color noise, and here's after. So DeNoise again is for really heavy noise. Now DeNoise can handle small amounts of JPEG artifacts very easily. So DJPEG is used for heavy amounts of JPEG artifacts, just like DeNoise is used for heavy amounts of noise. That's kind of where people get a little confused. They think that they can use each one to, use DeNoise to take care of it. It really doesn't take care of it, as we saw in that image of the girl. And let me just throw this image real quick, this original image, into DeNoise and show you. Oh no, that was the wrong idea here. Let me throw it into DJPEG and show you that DJPEG cannot handle the noise that comes with this really heavy noise, which I wouldn't expect it to, but some people really want their noise. There are two noise sliders here to work as well as DeNoise, and it just doesn't. It's not as advanced. It doesn't have as many options. You don't have as many as much control over it. So let me just go to, this is not a JPEG. That's one issue that this image is having. But if we just don't worry about the main tab at all and just work on the noise tab, we can see if we can handle it. Let's go this way. So I'm increasing the lumen noise, which is the contrast noise. That's why I went into my black and white type of mode, my grayscale. It's just showing the luminosity. And as you can see, as I'm going up and continuing to go up, I start to get these really worm-like patterns all over the image. It's struggling to handle this really high amount of noise. So I'm just going to continue going up. And I'm all the way up, and it's doing a pretty good job, but it's just kind of flattened everything out. I've lost some crisp edge here. So let's see if we can recover that in the detail. But now I'm going to look at my color first. Here's my color noise. There's color noise all over this. In detail, you have red and blue. You handle it separately because they are different channels. Color noise all the way at the top, you still have lots of noise coming through, so that's not a great way of handling it. Now you can, let's see here, try to sharpen when we're in our normal, get those crisp edges back, but you can see right away it just doesn't do a very good job here. So they are very different programs. You do use them for very separate things. Now there is a little bit of an overlap. You can control minor amounts of noise within DJPEG, and you can control minor amounts of JPEG compression artifacts within DeNoise. But if you're working with the high amounts of noise that we worked with just today and the high amounts of compression artifacts, then you're going to have trouble solving it without their specific programs. All right, and that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining me for Quick Tip Thursday. I hope you'll join me next week. I am going to stay on and answer all these questions that are coming through. For those of you that need to go, thank you so much again for joining me, and have a great afternoon or whatever time it is in your time zone. Have a great evening, morning, whatever. See you guys soon. Bye-bye. All right, and now we have question and answer portion of our quick tip today. We have tons of questions coming through, so let me just go ahead and get started. Bill asked a good question. Do JPEGs degrade as they get copied, say from one drive to another? As far as I know, just copying a file to another drive is not going to degrade that file. However, if you do open the file or the JPEG into Photoshop and you don't and you press Save As opposed to just Save, and you save it again with some sort of compression to it, even if it's a high compression, it will have some sort of loss to that JPEG, even though you're saving it at a quality 12. So as you continue working on JPEGs, they will usually continue to degrade. David asked a good question, DeNoise presets for TIFF files. Whenever you convert, this image that I'm using right now is a CR2 image from a Mark D52. However, when it processes into Topaz DeNoise, it is acting as a TIFF, an uncompressed TIFF. So that is, even though it says raw, it's actually acting as a TIFF because you're not going to be able to necessarily work on a raw image within DeNoise, but it is still an uncompressed preset or uncompressed file that it's thinking about. Humberto asks, I use Photoshop elements. How can I use DeNoise with raw files? You should be able to use it in the same way that I showed here, as long as you have a raw converter. You have to actually convert your image from that. I use Adobe Camera Raw, so it just depends on what your raw converter or raw conversion is, and then you should be able to open it into Adobe Elements and work on it in the same way. Okay, Joanne asks, what about scanned images from negatives or such that have scratches as well as dust or other noise? Joanne, that's a great question. When you're scanning an image, you have the option, depending upon your scanner. I know that the scanner we use here at the office, we have the option of what sort of format to save that image in. So if you don't save it as a JPEG and compress it immediately off the bat, which I don't suggest you do, especially if you're scanning in 35mm or smaller images, you want them to be as much information as possible right off the bat, especially if you have scratches or dust to deal with. Now, DeNoise is not going, neither DeNoise nor DJPEG are going to be able to solve extremely bad scratches because it's not really image noise and it's not necessarily any JPEG artifacts. It's not really their intended use. However, I know a lot of people who have scanned in old negatives, and there's a lot of grain in there that they didn't want, along with some dust, and DeNoise handles that beautifully. So we do have many users who use their scanned images that way, and it's really up to you how you want to save those initially, whether you want to save them as a TIFF or want to save them as a JPEG, whichever works best for you. Bob asks, will we ever be able to apply effects to only certain parts of the image? Yes, Bob. Within the program itself, we don't have a brush tool. I think that is what you asked, sort of like a brush. However, we do have multiple ways to do selective adjustments with our programs. I do have a quick tip Thursday webinar as well on selective adjustments on our YouTube channel. I'll go ahead and direct you all to that link whenever this is done. Definitely take a look at that. With Remask, it's very simple to cut out areas of your image and work on those within whatever program you want to take them in. You can also use whatever masking tool you would like within Photoshop as well. So let's say on this particular image, let's say for some reason I wanted a big patch of this checkerboard within her hair. Who knows? So I'm going to come to my image that I worked on. Let me get rid of this one. This is my background copy, which is actually the DJPEG version. Let me show you again. Here's after DJPEG, but this is before. Let me get really close here. Oop. I hope you can see all of that in there. Okay, so we have this checkerboard pattern going across, and now we don't. Now, if you want to keep that in there, really simply, you can just add a mask. You can do it that way, and you can use a brush as you were talking about. So you just click on the layer that you manipulated or whichever layer you need to be on, and you can come up here to Layer and Layer Mask, and you can go to Reveal All or Hide All. For this one, I'll reveal all of this particular layer, so the whole DJPEG layer will be revealed. That means I'll have a white mask. Now I'll be able to paint black on this white mask to reveal the areas that I want to see on the layer below. So now all I need to do is make sure that I have a black brush. I'm going to just click on these little arrows to get my black up on top. I'm going to come up here to my brush, and I'm going to take my brush size about right here. I'm going to take my opacity all the way to 100. You usually don't want to do that because it'll give you a really strong line, but and it's not a very good blending mode. But now I can, I hope you see this coming through. Now you can see over here on the mask itself that I just painted this black blob here, and now that checkerboard pattern is coming through only where that black blob is. So there's multiple ways to do selective adjustments. It depends on what you need to do with your image at the time, but lots of different ways. Okay, great question, Helene, and I'm sorry I didn't say that before. Workflow for DeNoise and DJPEG. Now, if you have an image, DeNoise or DJPEG are going to be at the very beginning of your workflow. You want to use DeNoise if you have a really noisy image, it's not a JPEG, and you're not worried about JPEG artifacts. Use DeNoise first because you don't want to manipulate any of the colors or any of the pixels within your image before you take it into DeNoise, because it's just going to make it that much harder for the program to eliminate that noise and really detect that noise in the correct way. Now, if you have a JPEG image with really strong artifacts like this one, and you want to then use DeNoise as well on top of DJPEG, use DJPEG first, because what it will allow you to do is get it to a point where those major artifacts are eliminated, and then you can come in and work with DeNoise. If you worked with DeNoise first, you'd start to soften it up a little too much because those really big artifacts are going to kind of tell the program that they're noise when they're not actually noise. So it softens it up a lot, as we saw with the hair. So DJPEG first, then DeNoise. And if you don't need to use DeNoise, then just DJPEG first. If you don't need to use DJPEG, then just DeNoise first. Rob asks, can you apply this to a batch of photos? Yes, you can through your Actions palette in Photoshop. So you can do that through Actions. We don't actually have a batch process within our program, but it's easily done through Actions. Sheila asks, can this be used on a RAW file? I'm guessing you're asking if DJPEG can be used on a RAW file. You really shouldn't have to worry about using DJPEG on a RAW file because you're not going to be having those compression artifacts. And that's specifically what DJPEG is designed for. So with a RAW file, I would definitely suggest using DeNoise over DJPEG. Marcia says, if you crop a picture to a much smaller size, would you then use DJPEG? Marcia, if you are not compressing, you don't necessarily, even if you crop an image, so say I crop a TIFF, you don't have to compress that TIFF at the end of the when you save as. So it all depends on how you are saving your image and if you are compressing your image. If you're compressing it, then and you're starting to see those compression artifacts appear, then DJPEG would be perfect for those crops. If you don't see any artifacts, even when you're going up to 400%, then I wouldn't worry about it. Walter asks, which of the two programs would you get first, having the choice? Great question, Walter. I personally would what DJPEG is for older images, website images where when you're finding these really heavy artifacts, such as this, the image that we were looking at before. These really heavy checkerboard and mosquito noise type of artifacts that aren't going to be able to be handled by DeNoise. DeNoise can handle smaller amounts of compression artifacts within the noise reduction process, and DJPEG cannot necessarily handle really high ISO noise at all, as we saw with this image here. It starts to create these kind of wormy artifacts. So if I had a choice, I would get DeNoise first because I could see myself using it more than I would DJPEG. But if I have a ton of old images that I wanted to restore, or if I have a camera that compresses into JPEG files for me, and then I upload those and I see those artifacts quite often, or if I take a lot of camera phone images and I see those compression artifacts quite often, then I'd go for DJPEG. I'd just say it's really what you're seeing in your image is more either really heavy noise or really heavy artifacts, and I just go with that, whichever one you're seeing more. Sam has a great question. He says, if I use DeNoise or DJPEG on a JPEG image and then correct it the way I want it, is it better to save it as a TIFF or a JPEG for better quality? I'm a TIFF person when it comes to images. I don't like to compress my files until I have to, maybe right when I put it on the website or right at the end. But I always don't compress as I'm working on them. So if you have a chance to stop compressing when you're working on your JPEG images, go ahead and do that. Okay, let's see here. We have lots of questions still coming. Okay, we have some great feature requests that a lot of people are talking about, asking about. Definitely write us at help@topazlabs.com or hop on our forum. We have a feature request area, and put those in there. We'd love to hear from you guys and what you're interested in. So thanks for the feedback. Okay. Lynn asked a great question. Are JPEGs also treated as a TIFF file by DeNoise? Lynn, no, they're not. DeNoise and all of our plugins recognize JPEG and TIFF files. So it will know if it's a JPEG file as opposed to a TIFF file. Okay, looks like we do still have a few questions, but this is definitely more than a quick tip. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thanks for staying on with me. If you have any more questions, you can send them to me at webinars@topazlabs.com, and I'm happy to answer them there. Thanks again for coming, and hopefully I'll see you next Thursday at our upcoming Quick Tip Thursdays, and I will be sending any links that I talked about in the follow-up emails as well. Take care, everybody, and have a great afternoon or whatever time it is in your time zone. Take care. Bye-bye.